we will be continuing this exhibition. So if you want to come back or bring people back, please spread the word. We will be open tomorrow, Wednesday, again 12 to 5. And then the auction is Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. And it's here, and it will be live where you're sitting right now. So for those of you who like to come to auctions in person, people who used to come here all the time, we'd love to have you back. Well, of course, you can bid remotely. We have old-fashioned phone bidding. We have the live bidding on the website, live.swangalleries.com, and on the Swann app. And just want to let me know when you're ready. Okay, well, good evening. I'm Nigel Freeman, and welcome to Swann Galleries. I'm delighted to have you all here, and we're hosting a special talk this evening in honor of Patricia Scipio-Brim and this wonderful art collection that we're very honored to present and have at auction here at Swann Galleries. And to talk about collecting and Patricia and the collecting of African American art, I'm joined by two wonderful guests who are very knowledgeable and come with two different perspectives, which we will enjoy in our discussion. On my left is Jennifer Stewart, really a wonderful friend and a great client of Swann, who knew Patricia very well, and we'll be speaking about her relationship with her, our friendship built around many of these experiences collecting art. And Jennifer's an art collector, an art advisor, very experienced, and worked in conjunction with many galleries and collectors here in New York. And on my right is Navindren Hodges, who is the managing director of Bill Hodges Gallery, his father's gallery, of course, founded in 1979. And Navindren has been managing the gallery and will be sharing how galleries work with collectors like Patricia and Jennifer in building these sorts of collections. And so we're really excited to have you both here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And so we'll start with you, Jennifer. Thank you again for coming.
Oh, you're quite welcome, Nigel. Thank you. And I'd like to thank you, Nigel Freeman, and Corey and Sabina, and all the Swann organization for making this happen. I think Pat would be very thrilled to see this, and I thank you all.
Yeah, I would thank you again, and I must please give a thank you to all the family and friends of Patricia who are here today. It's a big family, and the collection of art is part of it, but we're really brought here together in friendship and family, and it's really been an honor to work with you and make this presentation. So it's been a joy working with you, and I'm forever grateful to you and the estate. So we're talking today about your journey and your friendship with Patricia. Can you tell us about your first
I met Pat
experience?
about over 30 years ago, and I met her at a gallery in Brooklyn on Vanderbilt Avenue in Prospect Heights. And the gallery was owned by James and Beverly Powers. This gallery was a very, very special place and a majestic place. It's a place where I would go after work and sit down. And Ernest Critchlow would walk in. Vincent Smith would walk in. Ed Clark would come in. Gatewood would come in. Ron Walton would come in. All these artists would come in and chat, and it was like talking with friends. There was a show, another artist that was very close to the gallery was James Denmark. And if you're from Brooklyn, you love James Denmark. If we had a show for James Denmark, 80 to 90% of the work is sold. That's the level of love. Well, in walks Pat with her invitation piece. And she would look around and continue to look. And I would go over and say, Pat, can I help you? I didn't know her. Can I help you make your decision? And I told her I had bought a Denmark 2 years ago. And that was the invitation piece as well. And it was called Easter Sunday. And that sealed it for her. She asked me for the dot. She put the dot on the piece. And she was out of there. That was the Friday. The show opened on Saturday night. Pat don't come to no opening. And everyone sits there and want to know who got this piece or who got that piece. I knew it was Pat who got the piece, but that's how she operated. When the show ended in about 2 to 3 weeks, James and I took that piece to her down at her house on Wyckoff. We delivered it to her, and then we went out to dinner at 2 steps down. That's my first experience meeting Pat.
Wow, that's wonderful. Yeah, what a quintessential Brooklyn art experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Really wonderful. And we have a couple of James Denmark collages in the sale.
The piece is right behind us that
So that's
yeah, the woman seated on the chair. That's her. I have it right here.
Yep.
That's the piece.
Wonderful. So the genesis of your friendship and collecting experience together, that's really special. And when did you begin to know Patricia more, and how did it evolve as a relationship with collecting? I think we all enjoy going to galleries with someone who you can kind of shoot the breeze with. You can say, well, do you really like this? Did you have that kind of relationship?
We did. And we had it more at the studios, at the artist studios. That was her thing. She would come to my house. One experience of us going to an artist studio, she'd come to my house and she focused on 2 particular artists, Jack White and Frank Wimberly. When she found out that I knew Frank Wimberly, Jennifer, when are we going to Frank Wimberly? My husband works every other weekend, Pat. So when we get an off weekend, we finally did. And it was me, my husband, Cynthia Barnes, and Pat. We went to Queens to Frank's studio. Cynthia got her piece. Pat got 2 pieces and paid for them. Pat pays for her pieces on the spot. But she didn't put them in the car. And she said, I'll come pick my pieces up. When she does that, when she went back to pick the pieces up, she never said, Jennifer, you gonna go with me? She went on her own. So you know what that means. More purchases, okay? She gets more pieces.
That's wonderful. Well, we're learning about how access is pretty important.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and she takes full advantage.
Yeah, that's right. Getting your foot in the door first. Before the gallery opening, and then visiting artist studios. Oh, that is such a quintessential New York experience, to be able to walk into the studio of Frank Wimberly or some of these other artists that you later did, like Frank Bowling. We've got Frank Wimberly and Bowling next to each other.
We'd go to Camille Billups.
Yeah.
We'd go to Gregory Coates. There were just so many of them we would call. And we'd go to these studios. And she said, Jennifer, you know a lot of artists, don't you? But they're great experiences.
And so she was collecting, and these experiences were in, just to give some perspective to the younger folk here, in the 1990s and 2000s?
With Frank, it was a little later. Well, it was mid-2000.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, mid-2000.
A lot of those works are in that time period.
Yeah,
they date from that
that's one
period.
of the pieces there that she got at the Frank studio.
Fantastic, fantastic. And and so as you went to some of these studios, and where there's a moment when these artists became, as you grew as collectors, the artists were growing in stature and would soon be in galleries like Bill Hodges' gallery or other galleries where they were represented. How did you navigate the gallery world?
We didn't. But, well, you pick your chances. For example, Frank was with Spinerman, and then that relationship ended. And he didn't have a gallery for a while before going to Barry Campbell. So during that time, we go in.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's
Gotta eat.
Support.
Gotta
Yes.
eat.
Artists need collectors, yeah. I mean, that's a network that keeps going.
But the minute he went to Barry Campbell, and I called him because there's somebody here I was going to take to his studio, and he said, nope, go to Barry Campbell. So you respect that.
Well, I met you and Patricia. I don't know her that well. I don't quite feel comfortable calling her Pat, so I'm going to call her Patricia. In 2007, you both came to our first auction here. For those of you who don't know, I founded the department in 2007, so we've been doing African American art auctions for a while here. It's no longer a new thing. And you two were some of our earliest supporters and collectors. And how was that experience to find a gallery or an auction house, I should say, where there were larger groups? You probably also went to the Puck show, the Black Art show. That was an important experience. Can you tell us about those early days in 2007? A little bit?
Coming to Swann?
Yes.
Or going to the Puck?
Oh, whichever you want.
All right.
We can talk about Swann.
Well, when Swann started, we were like an auction house, because prior to that, another auction house started in Brooklyn and didn't do very well.
Bell and Cora?
Yeah, Will and Cora.
Well and Cora, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they had an auction the same week as our first auction. It was not great timing.
They didn't do well at all. So when we heard of Swann, we came to see.
That's wonderful, yeah.
You know, and it was good because now we have another outlet other than galleries that we can go to, because previous to that, we were buying art. We didn't consider ourselves collectors. We were art enthusiasts that were decorating our wall. You know, I went to Sherman and Essie's house, and I saw beautiful painting on the wall. And for me, it was like, I want my house to look just like that.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Right.
So when
You're referring to S.C. Green Gallery
Green, yes.
and
but they were in Brooklyn at the time. Oh, not on Coven Avenue. No. Park Plaza Gallery.
Ah, okay.
Before they moved to Harlem, and then they named it S.C. Green Gallery.
Got it.
And we didn't know that you can sell your art at auctions. So when Swann came, we were all here looking to see what would happen. Will you continue to exist? Selling African American art. I mean, you were in the business. Right. But was there a market at the time?
Yeah, well, we found out. And we're still here.
Yeah.
But it was, it was essential for me to gain the respect and trust of collectors like you and Patricia, really to know that we were working to build this, be a part of this sort of ecosystem of collectors, artists, galleries, but we were the kind of the new kids on the block. Bill Hodges, your father, predates us all. He started in 1979. Did you know, when did you first meet Bill? Did you know
I knew Bill. I didn't buy from him, but I would go to
That's okay.
I didn't have the money to buy from him. That's
Fine,
all
you
it
knew
is. Okay, but I can tell you the story when I did buy from him. I knew him, and I was going to the Puck, the Josh Wainwright's national.
The National
Black
Bucket,
Fair.
yeah.
And Joan and I, as we were coming through the door, Ron Ali was coming out of the door, and he had 2 pieces under his arm.
Yeah,
and we said to him, Ron, where should we start? Because if Ron tells you something, you know that's real. And Ron said, go right over there to Bill Hodges' gallery. Go to the back, to the right, and the top. They're Frank Stewart photographs. They're amazing. They're $400, the best deal in the show. And we went there. Bill was sitting there. We got our photographs.
That was a good tip.
That was a very good tip.
Yeah, Ron Ollie was a wonderful collector. He gifted his collection to the St. Louis Art Museum. He also collected Frank Bowling and many of these artists.
All the abstracts.
Yeah, he was also very interested in abstract art, and so the galleries came together at the Puck Building, and so that's when you first met Bill.
When I first bought from him.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah, the second time was, I have a friend, Joan Smith. She was the art major, went to Colgate, and I literally had figurative work on my walls. And Joan liked abstract. One day she came to my house, a book in one hand, and avocado, cilantro, red onions, apple pucker, and vodka.
Oh.
She made the avocado, I made the apple martinis. And the book was H.H. Arneson, History of Modern Art. And that was the book that they taught her at Colgate. I never took a class, but she loves to teach. We would sit on the couch, drink our apple martini, and go through the book. And as we're going through the book, she gets frustrated. She says, see that? No black artists, none. They didn't teach me any. And then she said, well, you know what, Jen? You need to get some Norman Lewis's. I don't have Norman Lewis's money. Yeah, we're going to go to Bill Hodges, and you're going to get some Norman Lewis's. I said, okay. And when Joan tells you we're going to do something, we're doing it within days. If I tell you, it's going to be a month. We were at Bill Hodges within the next week. I bought 4 Norman Lewis's, 2 for me and 2 for Cynthia Barnes sitting in the back there. So that was my real introduction to abstract art with Bill Hodges at his gallery.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, your father was a trailblazer.
Yes,
and
especially for Norman Lewis works, because I think when he started the gallery in '93, there wasn't a lot of attention being given to Norman Lewis. And so to have somebody say, we're going to go get Norman Lewis is just, it's a good feeling to know that I guess my dad did his job.
Yeah, I mean, he was working, I think, closely with the estate, and had the foresight to see how important Norman Lewis was to telling this story of post-war abstraction, and he put on really wonderful shows. He produced catalogs. He really, I have those are tucked on my bookshelf. So really,
the catalogs are particularly important to what he did, because I don't know, at the time it wasn't a lot of advertising in the sense of, sure, he could put an ad in a newspaper, but if he wanted to show off the work that he was showing in the gallery to a wider group of people, catalogs were the best way to do that. And the catalogs could go to museums, they could go to individuals, they could go to collectors. And he always said that he would produce the catalogs not to sell catalogs, he was producing the catalogs to show people art. And I think he would do that, and I think he did a good job, because I think that we just produced the catalog. It was our 34th catalog over the years. So we're putting out a catalog every year or so, just based upon what's in the collection or specifically for an exhibition that we're doing. And even if it started, I think our first catalog was in 1995, was a Norman Lewis catalog titled The Second Transition. It's a small pink catalog that he produced. And to do everything in-house. Work with Quark Express to design a catalog, take photographs with a medium format camera.
Yeah.
Used to ship out the design and then have to travel to Asia to make sure that color was correct. Because in reality, if that's what you're using to sell art, it needs to be accurate.
Oh.
So he would take trips just to make sure the color was correct if he's going to send out these catalogs to all these people, because nobody wants to see a catalog, say, I love this work, and then show up and say, it's not what I expected.
Yeah, when Jennifer and Patricia come to the gallery, it's gotta
Right.
be a good match. Yeah, no, I remember those days when I started at Swann. We had an in-house photographer who was printing film in a dark room in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Black and white pictures.
Oh, yeah,
Color
no,
had to go out. That was special.
Even when I started working with my dad, yeah, I learned on a medium format camera to take transparencies. And I guess I learned Quark Express and then later in design, but I didn't know any of these things when I started, which is, my dad was always leaning into the fact that it's the art's there, and it's about showing people the art, but if we're not good at business, we're not gonna be able to do that. So learning how to run a business was an important part of trying to work with him, over the years,
Give us a little sense of when you stepped into your current role. You've
So I guess that's
grown up around the gallery, but
Yeah.
now you're...
So I grew up around the gallery. My dad had the gallery in '93, and at the time I was, like 8 when he opened it? I would, go for spring breaks, summer vacations, winter breaks, whatever else, I was at the gallery. I went to college. He wanted me to be a doctor. But I didn't finish pre-med. I finished with a biology and Japanese minor. But after I finished, I could go work in a lab. I could, translate Japanese, but I ended up being at the gallery. And that was the biggest part of being at the gallery was learning how much I didn't know, whether it was how anything in the world of business worked or learning about the work on the wall. I enjoyed numbers anyway, so I could, I dealt with a lot of paperwork because if you're running a business, you have to deal with a lot of paperwork. Learning how to use the medium format camera, learning all the Adobe programs, I guess, when they came out. But it was a lot of learning, and it was different every day, learning how to build crates.
You're working in a small business, whether it's a gallery auction house, you become a jack of all trades.
Yeah. So I just learned as many skills as I could. In fact, after a couple of years, my dad said, well, if you're going to stay here, you need a more appropriate degree. And so he sent me to Sotheby's, and he was like, I'll pay for it. I was like, okay, well, then I guess I'm getting a master's degree. So I got my master's degree in art business, which at the time, I think was the second year Sotheby's was doing it in New York. So a lot of people I told I was getting my master's in art business, they didn't know that was an option. But it was a good program, which is also an interesting program because a lot of the people I went to school with, they were art history majors or studio art majors. So they knew all these things about art history I didn't. My knowledge of art history was solely based upon essentially what, as Jennifer explained, was not necessarily taught in a lot of more traditional art history classes. But
you had a great education working with your father.
Yeah, exactly. So I learned a lot of the art history in a very niche market.
Yeah.
And that's just what I was around for most of my life, and that's what I kept doing. And
I think that's a wonderful experience, and that's the great thing about working and seeing so many works of art. It's an education where you were excited when you handle your first Romeo Burton collage or Norman Lewis painting, but then you see another one, and you see another, and you start to make comparisons and looking, and that's really kind of, I think, the journey you had with Patricia. You started to see and look and go more places and decide. You have a sense. I think a lot of collectors will. There's a bit of a journey there, what they first collected and what they start to go towards. We're seeing a great diversity of work here. We're featuring in the name the abstract beauty because there's certainly a sense of color and interest in abstraction. But you and Patricia, there's a path here, and seeing all these works on the wall, do you see it differently, or is it as you remembered it?
No, it's as I remember it. And what I like about seeing it, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking folk art, in the corner, the two Thornton Dial piece. She didn't collect any folk art, so we're talking, and she sees my purpose in my house. And she started collecting folk art with the purposes and the Thornton Dial. She didn't have any photographs when we started hanging out. And I told her that we had just started our little group, Kuyenga Jamii, to collect photographs. And she joined our group. And she loved photograph, that photograph right there. The Anthony Barboza.
Yeah, the Tony Barboza portrait of Sam Gilliam.
Right.
Yeah.
That was her favorite photograph. And we had Buford Smith. These two here are Buford's piece. I mean, that little boy down there, he's just amazing. And the third photograph piece we have in the show is in the back there. And it's from a wonderful photographer by the name of Gerald Cyrus that's from Philadelphia. And we went to Alex Harsley's studio on 4th Street, and she loved photograph. Jennifer, go to the top, let's get the best photographers. And that was her. Wow. So she collected different.
Right.
Okay. Then I was affiliated with Dorsey, and I would call her up. If I saw something that she liked, and I told her about it, she would come over. If she really loved it, she'll be there the next day. If she was soft on it, she'll take a week. But she was that person. One of the shows we had at Dorsey was the Ellsworth Orsby show. And when she came on the day, she did come on Sunday, but the pieces were sold out. And she said, Jennifer, I would have gotten that piece if it wasn't sold. So I said to her, you can have that piece if you want it. It was my piece that I had. But I know I can get another piece from Khalid.
Yes.
So I said, Pat, you can have the piece. Go find Duna. Duna, do you remember that?
I remember.
Yeah, and Duna just wrote her up, and Pat was happy, but as soon as she gets her piece, she's out the door.
Smart. She knew what she liked, and she
Yes.
knew what she wanted.
And
Yes.
she works on her collection, but she's also a collector that collects with passion. The piece in back, the Bearden piece with the woman with the rooster. I know when Pat bought that piece, Pat was thinking about running around in her backyard in Trinidad with them chickens. That's what, And she told me another piece was the Benwood Dick piece. She went to Spenniman Gallery, and the piece was in the show, and she said, Jennifer, I had to have it. That was a Calypso when I was growing up, and I remember she bought the piece. She was a passionate collector.
Oh, that's great. That's on the wall behind us. The beautiful dark burgundy bowling. Yeah, and so your father had some business with Patricia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because even when you talk about seeing the collection here, it's interesting to see the collection, I guess, in just what we sold to her in the greater scheme of things, and what she was collecting and what the patterns are. Because I never really saw much of her collection.
Right.
Beyond what she acquired from us.
Neither did we.
Same. I mean, I think we're all, I mean, I knew the work that she bought from Swann, obviously, but it was a revelation to see this large collection, this diversity of interests, photography, figurative work, abstraction. So.
But one thing I will very much agree with Jennifer about is she was very efficient with what she purchased. She'd come in and she'd say, I like that. And it actually reminds me of a work, there's a Norman Lewis around the corner, I guess on the other side of that, which had a frame, it had a frame on it. I don't remember where how we decided on the frame previously, but but Patricia saw it and she loved the work. And my dad was like he wanted to change the frame on it. Okay. And I don't think Patricia cared that much. My dad was like, no, this is an important acquisition. We need to change the frame on it. Okay. But for Patricia's point of view, it was, I really like the work, and that's what I want. Right. And in fact, that happened with a number of things. Because I was looking through, in fact, when Jennifer reached out to me a few weeks ago to kind of go over what Patricia acquired from us. I remember we sold a number of things at the Puck Building, and the Puck Building's a busy place. Yeah. When we were doing the National Black Fine Art Show, like I wasn't there for the first few years, but if I was home during, in February, I'd be at the show.
Spring break.
Midwinter recess, I think it's called.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I'd be there, and there's another Norman Lewis, actually a small sketch that I remember we acquired from the estate, and we got a number of them framed. My dad was excited about showing a lot of them just to let people see these works from the sketchbook, and I took a weird pride in organizing them on a specific wall in a grid. And so she comes along and is like, I want that one and that one. Nice. And it was again, very efficient.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. At auction, you have to come back and fight for it. You have to bid.
Right.
But that's wonderful. I mean, I think we love collectors who have developed a real sense of what works for them, and you've obviously seen that in action. And that I again reference your father's. You did a whole catalog of his works on paper, and Norman Lewis is one of these artists where it's a really important part of his work. His body of work on paper is just a huge part of his production. He's not an artist who was drawing to make a painting. He was drawing to investigate these forms, and developed it. So we've had a long relationship with works on paper. Swann, of course, is known for works on paper. So it's great to see this, integration of works on paper and work. And your father.
The works on paper catalog was also very interesting because that's one of the few catalogs that we produced that was not specifically. My father produced. That was not specifically for an exhibition or for a selection of the works from the collection. My father was working with the estate, and he knew that there needed to be better documentation of the work. So he painstakingly went through as many works on paper as he could and put that together, which is I still use all the time. And it'd be nice if we had more of them, because I keep one in my office. My dad keeps one in his
hang
office.
On to at least one.
Yeah, but the number of times that a work will come up at auction, and if it's a work on paper, it very likely is in that book.
I always look there first.
So it's an incredibly useful resource that my dad was able to create such a long time ago.
Well, we're now living in kind of a different world, and there's a lot of things that are not even seeing paper at all. People are buying in online, digital there's so much digital media between presenting work, buying on work, especially in the last 5 years. We've seen such how have you, as a collector, how has your collecting changed in the last 5-10 years? And how is, where do you see the collecting going? You've seen the beginning, we're entering a different phase now. There's so many of these African American artists are great artists. They're celebrated much more. They've finally earned their due and are seen in museum collections. How's that all affected your collecting? How you look at art? I know that's a big question, but
It is. I like the online, the whole online thing. It gives me, I have the ability to go in, find an artist, research the artist, and buy the artist, and buy the work of the artist. I don't buy that much anymore, but it amazes me what has happened in the world of art due to the technology. I'm an old-fashioned girl. When we started out, we would go buy the art in Brooklyn, go to Manhattan, buy the art of artists that we know. Now, you have the ability to just go online and purchase people in Africa. Okay, the piece back there by Habib, Pat bought that online out of Africa.
yeah.
So it's a different world. And there are pros and cons. In the older days, we had relationships with artists, personal relationships. I miss that. Okay, but I understand there's so many more collectors, so many more artists out in the world that it's very difficult to maintain relationships. So sometimes you call the artist, you don't get a response. But if everyone's calling an artist, who's going to respond?
Yeah, no, it's definitely changed. I mean, we really value these relationships we built. I mean, I think I've seen those changes in my time here, where, and there's been a generation of collectors and consigners who we work with who are very closely related to the artists. This was an auction space is usually with people who bought from galleries, and you're not so adjacent to the artist. But in starting this department, we were working closely sometimes with artist estates and people who was just not much separation between the artist and the work and us handling it. And I'm sure your experience in the galleries changed that. How have you? How do you keep up in this world?
So when we closed the gallery on 57th Street in 2012, we moved a lot of our material to a storage/office space in Brooklyn we call the Annex. And I think we learned a lot from that experience because we were doing a lot of private sales. And I would send out emails, people would come by and see the work, but we weren't putting up exhibitions anymore. And that was, even right before we did that, we were starting to get the hang of sending out emails regularly. And I think we learned a lot from that, because even when we opened a space in 2014 on the second floor of 529 West 20th Street, we had a small space. We kept the space in Brooklyn, but largely there wasn't a lot of foot traffic necessarily. Because we were in Chelsea, we got people coming from the High Line every once in a while, but it wasn't quite what it was on 57th Street, where if somebody wanted to look at work, they had to leave, they had to go to the galleries. They could go to 57th Street, see X number of galleries in a single day. Which is interesting because we closed the gallery on the second floor of 529 West 20th Street. I think that was, what, 2014 or something like that? We opened 2014, closed in 2016, and went back to doing private sales. And also, we had so many work, because my dad just does secondary market material, so he was buying art no matter what. So there was a lot of documentation, because it was that line between somebody's asking about a work of art, oh, we need to make sure we have all the photographs, we need to make sure all the information's in line, check all the catalog raisonnés, and so on and so forth. So instead of having to do that every time somebody asked about something, we started building out a proper database. So that's what we did with our space in Brooklyn. But what that leads to is when we opened the space on the 10th floor of 529 West 20th Street, we opened our first exhibition on February, I think, 27th of 2020. And so we come out of our space in Brooklyn doing these online things, and then we open our new exhibition, and then on March 16th we closed it. So it came, all those things came in handy when we were when we were closed. I put up an exhibition, I took photographs, I tried to show whatever I could to whoever asked, and get better at social media, get better at sending out emails. But the other thing is, going back to the catalogs, I tried to scan more catalogs, or the newer catalogs that we made in a digital format, I tried to turn into PDFs so that I can make them easily available. Try to sell more catalogs on eBay for whatever people were willing to pay. Because again, we're not in the business of selling catalogs. We're trying to show people the work, which the digital age makes difficult in the sense of what I was describing earlier. When we're producing the catalogs, we need to make sure the color's perfect when we send out these works or these catalogs to people, so when they see the work, they're happy with what they see in the catalog versus what they see in real life. On a digital screen, I could take a photograph of something, put it on my computer. It looks different on my computer, on my Android phone, on somebody else's Apple phone, on somebody else's other monitor.
Yeah, that's all relative.
Right?
I know this very well.
Yeah. So
we could talk about that all day. Here, come back and we'll working in the business it's difficult to kind of square what you're trying to present with what you're trying to put forward, the best work. And of course, ultimately, the best experience is in person still. I mean, art is experiential. And so you still have you still have a lot of in-person experiences and gallery exhibitions, and you're back into it.
Which is good. Yeah, I mean, we're open again. COVID's
came through.
over.
Yes.
So people were coming by the gallery. Although we're still on the 10th floor of a building in Chelsea, and our foot traffic is still not anywhere near what a gallery used to be. So I'm still sending out emails, trying to present digitally as much as possible, because that's, even the people who come in who are interested in purchasing things, they probably saw something digital previously.
Right.
Or word of mouth was a lot more common back when we started. But it's great.
We've come a long way, and this collection kind of reflects that journey. Some of the early works bought from your gallery, and then I don't know if Patricia bought anything online, but we've seen the evolution of getting your foot in the door in artist studios to galleries and auctions and online, it's quite a journey. But we're in the relationship business here. You have to keep up with your clients too, and that's why we're beholden to Jennifer and Patricia and people like yourself who come in and see the work. So I really want to thank everyone for coming today, and wondered if we wanted to open up for questions. Did anyone have any questions for our guests? Okay, we've got a
Please
microphone
wait for the
you.
microphone.
We'll do a short Q&A, and then we'll let you mingle and enjoy the rest of the show.
I had a question. question. You mentioned catalog raisonné, but I don't think that there's any catalog raisonné, meaning like from A to Z of all the artworks that an artist has produced for any African-American artist. Can you prove me wrong?
I can't think of anything to prove you wrong with.
I know that's the
Jacob
problem.
Lawrence
Jacob
has one.
Lawrence has a catalog.
That's the only
raisonné.
one?
Yeah.
That's the only one I know of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's comprehensive.
And the problem is we have no young curators, people who go to do sort of more academic studies in this area and then work on their PhD. That's a problem. I know one person who's working on a PhD.
Oh.
And
No.
they took a year off.
Well, if I may just add, it's gotten a lot better though, because when we started in this business, there was a lot less, but there is a growing, if you follow if you look on, do any of you know the site Culture Type? It's a great resource for following trends in Black art. The number of appointments that Victoria posts of new young Black curators in these spaces is tremendous. So there is a new wave coming, and it obviously will take some time before that becomes research and catalog raisonné projects. So we'll be patient. Oh. One more question?
Thank you.
My name is Denise Pierce. Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing these stories. It's just really wonderful to hear about how much you shared. And I can just imagine how much fun you were having, because Pat was a lot of fun and she really enjoyed the art. And thank you so much for sharing as well. I just kind of had a little question about that Barbara Chase Rabeau over there, that study. So I just wondered, since Pat, we know how Pat was, did Pat have sculptures by Barbara Chase Rabeau also?
No,
That was probably next on the list.
she didn't collect sculptures.
At all? Okay.
No, I got her to buy auto sculptures.
Okay.
Those
Otto
that
Niels.
was in the very, towards the end of her life, but she did not have sculptures.
Thank you.
We have a question from our viewers on YouTube.
Oh, okay, sorry. There's a
YouTube raised
greater
their hand
audience.
before you all, so I'm sorry. Kelsey's going to give it to us.
We have a question asking if there are any must-see shows in Chelsea, the Chelsea Art District these days. From either of you, any advice?
We have an exhibition opening on Thursday.
free plug.
That's valid. Tell us more.
So it's titled Powerhouses. It's 20 different artists, 20 different works by the artists. It was curated largely by somebody who works at the gallery, and it's to serve as, everything we show is largely African-American material. There are a couple exceptions in there. I think we selected a Picasso because we're like, okay, we'll let a Picasso in. But yeah, most of what we show is African-American material. And the idea, or the idea behind it, is to show works by artists that maybe we normally show, but a work that we don't normally show by that artist. Because we're a secondary market gallery, and we try to put together exhibitions from my father's collection. And some of the works he doesn't like to necessarily show up as often. So there are a couple works in the show that are marked as not for sale, nice. But we're happy to show them. So it should be a good exhibition. Yeah.
I think we have, do we have time for, oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a response
Do you
to that
want to
question?
add anything? I think, I was hearing people praise the Alvin Ailey show at the Whitney. That looks really exciting, great survey. At Nordic House, Scandinavia House, there's a great show of African-American artists expatriate artists who lived in Scandinavia, artists like Walter Williams. Yes, and Sam Middleton and many others. So that is something to see uptown as well. We have another question? Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I just want to give you, Jennifer, the rest of the story about Frank Wimberly. After you took her to East Elmhurst. She didn't need a ride from you to go back to pick up her pieces because she asked me to take her. And she did buy a couple of more pieces, and I bought a piece. So I just wanted to give you the whole story.
Excellent. Well,
Here at Swann, we really endorse impulse shopping. Please do it anytime. One more question?
How would you guys advise maybe the next generation coming up of maybe younger art collectors on how to go about collecting art, finding artists, engaging with the landscape? Particularly, not everybody is just flush in cash to be able to purchase pieces for tens of thousands of dollars. So just how would you kind of recommend people do that?
Well, for one, regardless of age, because there are people who are older who are trying to get into collecting. I always say, look at art, even if it means going to museums as often as possible. And I think the other thing is people don't realize you can just go to most galleries for free. The number of phone calls I get that are, how much does it cost? Or if I want to bring that, a school or a class, is there a fee? Would anybody be willing to talk? I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to whatever class you bring in and tell them about the exhibition. I'd be happy to. And also auctions. I guess.
yeah.
Beautiful
because
things
Auction
online.
previews are open to the public. It's another part of the viewing experience. But it's really about you have to just sort of discover what you like. And so that is kind of a journey of just like figuring out, looking and comparing. Art exhibitions, at previews at auction houses, gallery, art fairs, of course. There's a lot to look at. And you're going to find a few things that catch your eye, and then you need to talk to people and ask them about this artist and find out more and develop relationships with great people like Navindren.
Because even auction houses, some people don't realize you can just go look at the art.
Yeah, we're
spreading the word that that's possible is a good start.
we have wonderful class groups that come here, and it's just a great moment to give the people that introduction part of the education. Terrific. Well, thank you so much.
I have one final question for you, Nigel, if
Okay.
that's okay. Which is, one, when is the sale? And two, what's your favorite thing about just handling a collection like this? Just broadly, I know we get really excited when we have a very complete feeling collection come in. I just wanted to hear you speak about handling that a little bit.
Yeah, it's really exciting to take a collection like this, especially a private collection. Because you get to see kind of the choices and things that caught the person's eye, as Jennifer pointed out, some of the interesting photography, and we start to see similarities between something from the 1960s from Buford Delaney with a Frank Wimberly, and seeing it all together in the room makes the difference. And then I think it's really putting a collection together like this is really we get to show the world what this is all about. Like, we work with clients all the time. They come to our auctions, and this is the grand result. Like, this is a wonderful celebration of viewing and collecting, and it's just great to be a part of it. So we're always excited to show off something that hasn't been seen before, and this is the first time this collection's all been in one room together. So, and to answer the second question, the auction is this Thursday, at 2 p.m. Eastern, and the auction takes place here in person. You can also bid via our platforms at live.swangalleries.com on your desktop, also via the Swann app. And we also do traditional phone bidding and other forms of absentee bidding. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us, please call us. And we look forward to hearing from you and hopefully seeing you Thursday. Thank you all.